In this video, I want to take a look at something from the point of view or perspective of a small business owner or anybody thinking about setting up a small business. My background is in small business, and years ago I was very much involved in retailing and so forth. And some of the ideas and some of the concepts, some of the formula, some of the terms that you should be familiar with from the perspective of a small business are ones that I'm going to deal with now, but you need to be absolutely crystal clear about what these terms are and what they mean, because without an understanding, a basic fundamental understanding of what I'm going to explain to you in this video, then you should stay away from setting up or running a small business until you understand this. Okay, so let's take, for the sake of this example, a business called ABC Small Business. You can call it what you like, and it can be a filling station, or it can be a coffee shop, or it can be a nail and hair bar, or a beauty salon, or a hairdressers, or a barber shop, or a pharmacy. It can be any of those businesses. You're going to have a figure like of weekly sales or turnover. The term sales and the term turnover are kind of interchangeable, but anybody involved in a small business, anybody involved in retailing would use those terms interchangeably. I would know precisely what we're talking about. For the sake of argument and for the sake of this example, I'm going to assume a sales figure of 50 grand a week, okay? Now, you're not going to do 50 grand a week in, for example, a nail bar or a beauty salon or a barber shop, but you will do it easily in a filling station or a convenience store or something of that nature, some high volume business in terms of turnover. Then let's assume cost of sales is 40,000. The gross profit is 10 grand, okay? The gross profit margin then is 20%. That is 10,000 divided by 50,000, which is the sales. So it's gross profit divided by sales is your profit margin, or also known as margin. Markup is slightly different, and people confuse the gross profit margin or margin and markup all the time. Markup is gross profit as a percentage of the cost of sales. So in this situation, the markup will be 25%, because it's 10 grand divided by 40 grand. That gives you 25%. That's the markup. And if you are in a cash business or any business and you don't know the difference between gross profit and markup, then you really need to get it clear in your mind. Now, if we take a look at the few expenses that I've put into this Word document on the left hand side here, you'll see rent, rates, wages, miscellaneous, insurance, bank charges. And you'll see behind each of those expenses I have an F or a V. The F stands for fixed cost, and the variable or V stands for variable costs. So the rent and the rates, for example, on a particular year, the insurance in a particular year, they're fixed costs. So let's say the insurance is 3 grand. If you open your shop 5 days a week, or if you open your shop 7 days a week, or if you take the month off and only open for 11 months of the year, or if you only open for 6 months of the year, the cost of the insurance is fixed. It's the same. It makes absolutely no difference whether you open or close. The same story applies, or the same principle applies to, for example, rates. Let's assume that the rates are 2.5 grand a year. That's 50 euros a week. Then your rates per annum is 2.5 grand, and that's it. It makes absolutely no difference to the local authority whether you open or close or do what you like. You're still going to pay rates of 2.5 grand, 50 euros a week. And the same applies for the rent. If you have a rent or if you have a lease and you're paying 25 grand a year, that's 500 a week. That's what the rent is. And again, the landlord really doesn't care whether you open or close. Perhaps you open Monday to Friday, perhaps you open 7 days a week, perhaps you take a month off and go to wherever on your holidays, assuming that you could go anywhere with the COVID-19 situation going on. But bottom line is, the landlord still wants his rent, and he doesn't care whether you open or close. So again, that's a fixed cost. However, a variable cost that I have there is wages. So let's say you have a business which would have, let's say, a petrol station, and there's a car wash on it. Let's say the car wash is really busy. You could have a couple of young lads in there washing cars to beat the band, and they're flat out, and it's a busy time of the year. If the car wash was broken, for example, you might let those lads off. You wouldn't be getting them in, or you wouldn't need the staff. That's a variable cost, so you're not going to have the same fixed cost every week. The cost of your wages will vary depending on the level of turnover. Again, if your turnover drops from say 50 grand to 25 grand, clearly you have less need for staff in the 25 grand scenario vis-a-vis the 50 grand scenario. So your costs of wages will reduce. That's a variable cost. You need to be clear on fixed costs and variable costs, because you might be able to do something about variable costs. You can't do anything about fixed costs. But these ideas, these concepts of turnover, cost of sales, gross margin, markup, fixed cost, variable cost are absolutely key. Obviously down at the end there then you have a net profit of 4,050, and that's the gross profit less the total expenses, which is 5,950, and then you have a net profit margin of 8.1%, and that 8.1% is 4,050 divided by your weekly sales, which is 50 grand. That's the 8% or 8.1% profit margin. Hope you find this video useful. If you do, give it a thumbs up down below, and you might indicate below in the comments whether you'd be interested in any further videos similar to this one to do with small business and the basics of ratios and accounts and fundamental concepts that you must understand if you're running a small business. Let me know in the comments and I'll do a few more of them, and if you don't, that's fine. I would appreciate if you give it the thumbs up down below though. Thanks a lot.